On today's episode, we talk about how the world events impact AI use and AI technology. We talk about token maxing, and we talk about AI subscription creep. Stay tuned. Welcome to the AI Lab Unfiltered podcast. I am your host, Drew Veach from BizStream. I am joined by Mr. Pete Tarrant from New Wave.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for having me, Drew.
I'm glad you're here. So we've had some really good discussions already today, and we started another good discussion with Mr. Andy Bass, who we brought back on here. We've had him on here before, and welcome, Andy, back to the show.
Thank you. Good to be here.
And we just started talking, and it was like, hold on, everybody shut up. We got to get this going because we want to talk about this type of stuff. So I want to jump right into it.
Let's go.
Talking.
What do you want to talk about?
All right. So we were talking about AI voice agents and kind of the evolution of those, and certainly 11 Labs, like you mentioned, was kind of the pioneer and excellent voice technology, and there are evolving new ones that are coming out as well. So Fish.audio, if you're familiar with that one.
I haven't heard of that one.
I haven't heard of that one either.
Grok just released a new voice agent that I was listening to last night that seems quite good. And one of the AI agent projects that I'm working on is I'm building my own agent. Of course, it's called Jarvis because they're all called Jarvis. But and I'm trying different voice models for this because I want it to be voice activated and just have conversations to kind of manage not only my coding process, but also just kind of as a COO of my life and executive.
We're just talking about that. We're just talking about that's what we want.
and so I'm building out this platform to kind of do these things, and I'm exploring different voice agents to be able to enable this and have conversation. And so the Fish audio is good because you can actually get a good Jarvis voice. Like if you really want the Iron Man Jarvis thing, you can do it. But the other ones are quite expressive as well. So what you can get from 11 Labs is really good. It tends to be more expensive though, right? On a kind of transactional basis as you're interacting with these things. So you're trying to find a balance of what sounds really good that doesn't cost like boatloads of money.
Exactly.
Because if you're going to use it as a primary interface, you don't want to be spending all kinds of money on it because you're already spending money on models and all the other stuff.
Right.
So I think there's some really interesting evolution of that going on, and I think that what we see with the OpenClaws of the world and with the Hermes AI and with even with what Claude will evolve into will be more and more voice activated, and so those technologies I think will be incorporated more and more into these platforms and will also become cheaper over time. And so I'm really excited to see kind of where all that evolves.
Are there local voice models, or are we stuck right now having to make API calls to like a Fish or a Grok?
Yeah, there are. You can not only train local voice models, but you can also use pre-trained ones as well. And of course, some of the challenge there is you've got to have the right kind of capacity in your local system to be able to support that kind of thing.
Yeah.
In addition to whatever other models you might be running. So if you're really focused on running locally and you run Ollama or whatever for local models, then you've got to have the right infrastructure ultimately to kind of support that. Now, the good news is, that continues to improve as well. So if if you're using a Mac Mini or a Mac Studio and you're using, AI supported kind of chips within that environment, then, it makes it a lot easier, but still there's limits that you got to deal with.
Until quantum computing comes
Until quantum computing, which, is on the horizon. In fact, I just saw something this past week that said quantum computing essentially is we're like 2015 is kind of the time frame we're on. So we're close to having it, almost unleashed into the world. 2015 in kind of the generative AI time frame. So if you think about 2017 was when the Google paper was published.
Right.
And so we're on the cusp, I think, of quantum computing really kind of being unleashed And of course, it's going to be limited and expensive to start with, but you figure in not a very long amount of time, we're going to have some pretty amazing capacity.
Well, yeah, they can then run Mythos on it. I don't understand how the infrastructure's got to improve around it too. Like, I don't know how they're going to power it at this point,
Right.
because it just demands so much juice to run that type of thing, and we're already having issues now with power and people don't want data plants in because it consumes the water and it taints the water and all that. I mean, there's a lot of technology around it that needs to change.
Yeah, that's true. And
The
I think
war plays into it.
all that. Yeah. So I think that's going to be certainly something interesting to watch over the next few years. And maybe by the time the technology is ready, the power grid and all of the kind of
Yeah.
accessory things that are needed will also evolve to some extent.
I don't think it's going to slow us down. I mean, you can't
No.
just say, "Oh, let's put a pause on it for a year till we figure this out." They're just going to keep churning it out.
For sure.
I mean, it's going to happen.
Right. But I agree that once we get to that point, and I have a quantum computer on my desktop, and I can just load all kinds of really cool stuff on it, then the world is going to be, it's going to change more significantly for sure.
Yeah.
I speaking of like the war that's going on, kind of a side tangent, but how this is so related on a different scale, the whole Middle East war that's going on and how the ships were all stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, they had tankers of helium that were coming out that were stuck. So they have the big tanker ships with liquid helium in it. And there's a big I think it is in Iran, a big plant that manufactures, kind of harnesses helium and natural gases and a bunch of different kind of raw elements. And it's a very clean helium, a very small micron type of helium. And the ships were stuck in there. Well, what they use helium for how it relates to AI, they blow helium over the top of the chip while they're etching the chip. Like in that clean room manufacturing, it controls the temperature because helium grabs the heat and pulls it away, so it keeps it a consistent temperature on the face of that chip while they're
No
etching
kidding.
it. So you need helium for that. Well, the helium comes from, a majority of it comes from Iran. There's a plant in Iran or around Iran. Well, the ships coming out of there have this helium. They couldn't get through. So they're stuck in there. So how that trickled down to the clean rooms, because of number one, building the chips, and they pump helium into the clean room itself to see if there's any leaks. They're constantly testing it because it has to be so meticulously held at a temperature and cleanliness. They had liquid helium in these cargo ships. Well, that only lasts for, I think it's like 35 or 40 days before it literally turns to gas and dissipates and it's gone. Like literally just gone.
Well, wouldn't that be an advantage? Because then you could just float the ships out of the strait
Yeah.
and just
Like up.
yeah, just,
Like the
just
movie
take
Up.
off.
There's an old man and
Hey,
a dog. That's
good
floating
news.
around.
In 10 days, we'll be able to float this thing out of here.
So I heard like we only have X amount of helium, and then the plant itself is trying to keep up with the demand as it is normally. And they thought, well, we're going to clear this whole area next to us. We're going to build one of the biggest helium plants in the world, and we're going to start building that. And it's going to take like 5 years to get it up and online. That got bombed, that whole area. So that's starting from scratch, and it destroyed part of the current plant that's in there. So now we have a lower volume of helium coming out. And that's just one element. And they're saying there's like 18 other elements that come out of that plant that they need as well. So how is that going to affect chips? How is that going to do? All the chips in your phone, your TVs, everything that has a circuit board chip in there is now, that price is going to go up, and it's going to go right back to the consumer. Where
Awesome. Can't wait.
That's fantastic.
That's some great news, right? As soon as you said that, I just thought of that how interconnected all of that is, that infrastructure around just running AI alone.
Yeah. The supply chain world it's fascinating when you think about all of the different pieces that have to go into it. And whether it's the transportation piece or the warehousing piece or the manufacturing piece and the elements that you need. I mean, the specialization of all of that, and how dependent we are on all of these things now, and what is that going to mean for, you know, our society at least in the near term, for sure. Now, it might mean, well, we're not going to upgrade our phones as frequently, or we're not going to get the new computer as frequently, or you know, buy the new TV or whatever, because it's going to be that much more expensive.
Yeah.
And so now we've got to wait, and we want to take advantage of these things, and so you've got to make some decisions. Ultimately, it's like, okay, if you're an AI person and you're into this and you want to keep pushing the envelope forward on that, maybe you've got to spend more money on whatever it is, or maybe the services are going to go up too, right? So so just that I'm paying $200 a month for a Claude Max plan. Is that going to go up because now the cost to run the infrastructure is going to be that much more, or to pay for more chips is that much more?
I think in the short term, you're going to see, like what Claude announced within the last week, is Claude Code is no longer available at the $20 a month plan. You have to now have the $100 or more.
Right.
And I think I read this somewhere, or at least it's my theory, is that because their compute is constrained, it's hard to provide Claude Code to all these $20 a month users, because the value of what they're using is way more than $20. So they bumped it up, and I think in the short term you'll see that, because they don't want to keep raising these prices, but they can easily move the goalpost of what you have access to,
right?
Unless you're willing to pay more for it. Yeah,
exactly. And that's where I think, if you look at some of these other models, right? So people are going to start looking at what are the alternatives to Claude and to these high-end frontier models. And so like on my OpenClaw, I'm running just the Kimi 2.6, which is great. I mean, it works well, and it's not as good as what I would get with an Opus, but it's still sufficient for the kinds of things that I want to do there. So I think we're going to see more transition to some of those less expensive plans, maybe even the locally hosted open source plans, all of the ones that are available there. So I think that's going to be part of this journey as well.
Do we want to dig into the OpenClaw setup? Because I have questions.
Yeah, because I'm curious on that.
So you just mentioned you're using Kimi 2.6.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have a more frontier model orchestrator, like high-level agent that tells all the other agents what to do?
So I'm using Codex as kind of the frontier orchestrator model. Anthropic has been a little bit you're curious around use of Claude in those environments, obviously, and I'd rather not get my account locked out. So I've switched over to using Codex for my orchestrator, and that seems to work pretty well for what it is that I'm doing there. And then doing some like for heartbeats and that kind of stuff, just lower level open source kinds of stuff to make that a little bit cheaper. And
could you just expand on that for our listeners that maybe aren't familiar with why you would set it up that way?
Well, I think if you go back to just kind of the fundamentals of language models, they're all based on input and output tokens, right? And there's a cost to those when you're using commercial models, and those costs vary depending upon both the age of the model and its capabilities. So if you're paying for an Opus model from Anthropic, that you might be paying $15 for 1 million input tokens, that can be quite expensive. And so people will use cheaper models, both within the context of those providers. So I might use a Sonnet, or I might use a Haiku, because what I'm doing doesn't require the high end. And I think that's a lot about what the strategy is aligning the use case to the model. And so when you are doing really high need, high thought, complex activities, you want a high end model to do that thinking and to come up with a plan and design what it is that you want to do. And then you can say, well, I want to use a lower end model to actually do the work because it doesn't need that same level of thought and work to be done.
Right.
So oftentimes when I'm in the Anthropic world, I'm using Opus to do architecture and design, and I'm using Sonnet to do coding.
Okay.
And so when I'm in the Claude Code world. Well, in
I
a
do the exact same thing. That's literally my flow.
Yeah.
Is start with Opus, and then okay, now in this executional, switch to Sonnet.
Exactly. And then if I need something super low end, I can use Haiku because that's even less,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And it's the same thing with OpenClaw. You can define in that environment a variety of different models for different purposes. And so, one of the nice things about this OpenClaw world is it has this heartbeat that goes off on a regular basis. And when the heartbeat goes off, you can have the system wake up and do stuff. But that heartbeat is still an LLM call. And so you don't want to be spending a lot of tokens on a super expensive model for just something that says, hey, I'm still here.
Yep.
And so that's why you're trying to get as efficient as possible, as cheap as possible, the call for that to a very efficient model. And again, that can be a Haiku or that can be an open source or whatever you might want to use. But you're defining those different models for different purposes. And even if you're running agents within OpenClaw, each agent can have a different model that is aligned to the purpose of that agent.
I didn't realize it made a call to LLM every time that heartbeat went.
Yeah.
Did not realize that.
Yep. So, and that's why people that are, the interesting thing is if you're non-technical, right, you're like, oh, there's this cool new thing called OpenClaw or all these other agents, right? They're all very similar in many ways. And so I'm going to install this. And so they install it and they put in their Anthropic key or whatever LLM, key they're using. And it goes off, and they don't think about all of these different kind of ramifications of different models, and they wake up the next morning and they've spent thousands of dollars because they had no clue. And so this is just one of those things where it's like if you have a technical background and you kind of understand how these things work, you can be that much more efficient with how you're actually setting it up and using it, and you're not spending as much money. Now, for the people that don't have that technical background and just set it up and go, lesson learned.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hard way.
And even if you're not paying extra for those extra tokens, like with Codex, you've got a 5-hour limit and you got a 1 week limit for the amount of tokens that you can get for what you're paying, and you're probably not bumping into it at the higher level, but at the $20 level, you can get there pretty quick. So you might not pay extra, but you can't build anymore until until that resets. So it just slows things down. And I want to introduce the term that I've been seeing, token maxing, is how they're describing, that way of getting the agents the right model, not any more than they need, but the cheapest, most efficient model so that you can go further faster.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's the whole concept of right tool for the job.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that, we're understanding more and more about how that works. Part of that challenge is everything changes so quickly, right? There's always a new model coming out. And so you're kind of constantly thinking, okay, should I be using this model instead of this other one for whatever the purpose is that I'm trying to, I'm setting up an agent or whatever I'm doing. And so there's this kind of constant just, you're spinning a bit on model selection that can be a little tiring.
Yeah, it can.
If you're not, and you could be spending more money than maybe you would otherwise if if you kind of keep up with it.
This is the future we've talked about, and we've said it so many times on here. The future is people managing agents, and so you're describing exactly one way that plays out. Because, and I am starting to see services that are coming out now where they can pick the appropriate model for what's needed, and almost like a automatic transmission versus a manual one.
Yep.
And that will become ubiquitous, I'm sure, soon. But until then, we, the humans, have to manage these agents, and we have to, manage the models that they're using and all that to make sure that we can afford to keep using it.
Exactly. In fact, I'm speaking at a conference next week in Tampa on that very subject. It's the title of the talk is "The New Role of the Human in Software Engineering," and it's exactly that. It's we're as technology people and as developers, we're shifting our mindset, and we're going from we're in the code day to day and we're making those changes ourselves to AI is doing that, but we still have to kind of be the ones orchestrating and on top of it. And that human, you hear the distinction of human in the loop versus human on the loop. And the human on the loop is more of the we're kind of overarching and we're kind of watching what's going on, and we're not necessarily changing code ourselves all the time. And so I think that's going to continue to evolve, and especially the capabilities of these tools. We've talked about Lovable before, and some of these other ones that those are continuing to evolve as well, and make it easier and easier for the novice vibe coder to come in and create more enterprise level applications, because now they're thinking more about security and thinking about infrastructure and all the different pieces that a traditional software engineer would be thinking about anyway. And the AI is doing more and more of that work. And it's really providing a mechanism for a functional expert to come in and say, okay, I know what I want to build.
Yeah.
I don't have the technical capabilities, but I want to go and just tell the system what I want. And the similar thing is happening too with these different agent tools. Right? So whether you're using an OpenClaw or you're using a Claude Code, the interface may not be exactly the same, right? It might not. You're using Telegram or you're chatting with it in some way, and so again, you kind of have to know how to engage with these tools using the interface that's available. It isn't necessarily as nice as a Lovable, where I chat on one side and it builds on the other side.
Yeah.
You have to kind of understand what the right development process is there. But all of those things are evolving. All of those things are getting to the point where you really don't have to be a technical person to do it, and you can reliably create software that is meaningful, that has tremendous value.
Well, that's what I found in Claude Code, because I'll admit I haven't used Claude Code. I used Claude, then I got into Cowork, and then I got into Claude Code. And I am not a developer. I mean, either of us are developer back end, so I don't understand a whole lot of what that is. I got a whole team of people behind me, literally, that have always built stuff for me at BizStream, and so I was always just selling it. But to now dive into it myself and build stuff, I have 4 different tools that I built, sales tools that I've built that create Word docs, that create proposals, that have automated interfaced application timelines that are all interactive and can send email. I mean, it's amazing how easy it's become.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Almost scary how easy it's become.
It is. And, the nice thing with Claude Cowork is an example, that their cadence of new features is, every week there's something new that they're adding on to it, because it's that easy, because it's writing itself, basically.
Right.
And so now we're seeing those same kinds of capabilities that OpenClaw would provide, or Hermes AI would provide. We're seeing that now in Claude Code, because now it can deal with scheduled tasks, and it can deal with webhooks and API calls and all of these to invoke activities. So maybe if you were using N8N previously to do workflow, now you can use Claude Code for that, or Claude Cowork for that, because it's got those same kind of hooks to be able to interface. Now, you maybe don't have the exact number, the same kind of connections and API integrations and that kind of thing, but you can develop those things. Mm-hmm. That's the beauty of it. It's if you know what you want, and you have the ability to communicate well with the Claude environment, then it will build whatever it is you need.
Yep.
Create the skill, create the interface, and all of that. And so it makes it pretty easy to do. But again, it's not necessarily obvious to the general person quite yet.
Right. And Google Zero Auth is still a pain in the ass. There's just so much in there. I don't know if you've ever messed with it, but
I haven't. I've really kind of gotten away from Google. The last vestige of my Google use was image generation. Well, just in the last couple of days, OpenAI came out with their version, their second version of their image generator. I haven't used it yet myself, but the examples that I've seen on Reddit and stuff like that are really impressive. And so I might not need to go back to Google Gemini for anything anymore. I'll probably keep the subscription, because it's tied to my Google Drive and my emails, and there might be an application where I want to go back and integrate that, but I don't know.
That's one thing I have seen that, like, I would say hold on to that subscription for right now, or maybe just go back to the free one for now, because if you're using G Suite, it's going to tie in 10 times faster and easier.
Right.
Like Claude just came out with a bunch of tie-ins for, what is it, Microsoft Word and Excel and all that, which is awesome. But I use Google Slides, I use Google Docs, I use Google Sheets, which is the G Suite version of it. You can still use it with that. It's just a couple more steps you got to jump through to make it work.
It's not native. If it was native, it'd be smoother.
Right.
And I don't do a lot with the G Suite, so it's not that big of a deal for me. But for people that do, for sure.
Yeah, you guys are mostly Microsoft, right?
Yeah. There's going to be leapfrogging, right? I mean, there's always going to be this back and forth leapfrogging of, Google's going to come out with, Nano Banana 3, and it's going to be awesome. And everyone's going to be like, well, I should have kept my subscription because now I want to go back to this. And so I think, it is that we all have this subscription bloat problem. At least I do.
Right.
Guilty.
Here's my, I use Monarch for money management. And then I've got like a budget set up for like a monthly AI expenses. And it's constantly reminding me, you're over your AI budget by $300. and it's just because I should try this and I should try this. And then I subscribe to something and then I always forget to unsubscribe because I'm not really using that. So I've got to do the monthly review of like, okay, is this still a thing for me or can I let it go or whatever? So I think that there's an app there to manage an AI app tool to basically manage like, okay, how often am I using these things? And should I get rid of it or not?
Yeah. Well, if you were using, let's just say you were using OpenClaw to, get that subscription, it would know, and it would say, okay, you signed up for 30 days. At 25 days, OpenClaw would say, hey, just so you know, we're going to pay for another month of this if you don't cancel it. Like that's where I would like to see that go, is just kind of managing that natively because it's in the loop.
And that's a skill, right? I mean, you could develop kind of your AI subscription skill that, where you give it like everything that you're tied to. And every time that you subscribe to something new, it's like, hey, I'm using this new thing now. Keep track of this one as well, and let me know if if there's value in what I'm doing with this, and that I think that would be a valuable thing to have.
Yeah, it's like, hey, I realized you paid for this and you have not used it. Like you just did it because a friend told you it was cool and you never got to it or whatever. Yeah. Or it could even say, 10 days in, like, hey, I'm going to schedule some time so you can actually use this thing that you subscribe for before a month comes up and you cancel it and
before the free trials expired.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you noticed, this is the really weird question, but have you noticed your computer warming up when you're building stuff, like coding stuff? I have noticed that I use a Microsoft Surface. It's a very simple, it's basically for me to do business development because I'm not a coder. But now that I'm using more AI tools, you could just about fry an egg on that thing when I've got like 6 different code projects running, because why not do more than one? So I've got one running here. I got monitors. I got 3 monitors in front of me. So I've got them on all different things. And I felt the back of it the other day and I was like, holy Toledo, this thing. I literally ordered a fan. It's supposed to be here today from Amazon to set on my desk to cool the back of my, because I'm a little nervous because I'm like, I think I can smell the plastic. I'm like, I'm going to melt this thing to the ground if I'm not careful. And it's a solid state computer. I mean, it's nothing fancy.
Why? That doesn't make sense to me though.
But that's what I keep thinking, because I'm like, it's not like it's actually processing and computing it here.
Right.
It's all cloud based, but it's just using memory, and it's constantly, I'm guessing, rewriting to the memory, solid state memory, by the way. And then it's using some CPU to, I don't know, manage the front end of it or something. I don't know what it's doing. But I'm not the only one, because we're noticing that at our office that, okay, there's mechanical flags, I guess you got to.
You know why that's happening?
Well, I think your point earlier about you're doing more, right? So maybe you've got a bunch of windows up and they're all doing something.
Right.
And I do the same. I've got a MacBook Pro, and I've got virtual screens, so I'll just be flipping between screens. And I use a tool called CMux, which is basically it's like a terminal tool, so I can run multiple, and it's AI specific. So it ties into Claude Code, and it will send me a notification when like a process is done, when Claude's like waiting for something. And so I'll have like a bunch of windows just always doing stuff. And then I might also have, I've got a Windows that running, something like a terminal back to my OpenClaw, and so I've got that running, and then I might be using Claude Cowork for some stuff, or I might be using whatever. And it turns out actually that your browser, your browser actually uses a tremendous amount of CPU and memory. And so, that's one thing I always kind of keep.
That would make sense because it's all browser based.
Yeah.
Right.
Plus, I got YouTube and movies playing.
There's always something. You got loads of tabs open and all this. And so the computer has to track all that. And
You didn't say any of that when you first told the story. That would have been a lot more helpful. I'm running
I got my Amazon Prime movies playing.
Right. What I'm hearing is Drew isn't working.
I got video games playing on it. I don't know why it's not keeping up.
I have no idea I can fry an egg on this thing.
I'm doing like 3D rendering. I don't know what's going on.
I forgot to mention
rendering.
I forgot to mention all the other shit that I'm doing on there.
Yeah. But my computer will sound like a jet engine. I've got the fans are going a million miles an hour, and it's trying to keep up. And then I kind of know, okay, I probably have a process that's going. I run a continuous backup process. So and that's always like pushing stuff out to the cloud and backing up and all this. So it definitely will eat up your CPU.
Yeah.
And when it gets hot, you kind of that's the barometer of being like, okay, well, maybe I had to turn a few things off. Or,
right. I just noticed it the other day, like connected the dots, because I'm like, man, it seems like it's getting really warm lately. But I'm like, well, the sun's up and I'm next to a window thinking, well, it's probably just the sun hitting it. And then I realized I went into a meeting at the office, half hour of just pausing my computer, just putting it to sleep. And I'm like, I don't need my laptop for this. I went into the meeting, came out half hour later, and it was nice and cool again. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's everything I'm running. All my movies I'm running. My video editing going on.
Exactly. I mean, it adds up.
Holy smokes. Yeah, that's
sure.
a real thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you back up your desktop.
The real answer is your ADHD.
It really is.
Yes.
It really is.
Well, I'll tell you, I want to upgrade my computer. I've got an M4 chip right now, and I was thinking about going to the M5, but the M6 is supposed to come out. Theoretically, it was going to come out later this year.
They ran out of helium.
But exactly, they ran out of helium, and so now there's all this delays and all the supply chain. So now it's going to be next year sometime. Now I got to make the choice: do I go now or later?
Yeah.
It's if you're into this stuff and you want fast computing, you got to make those choices.
First world problems, but it
absolutely is. It absolutely is.
Do I get the best now or do I get the better later?
Yeah.
We were just talking about that earlier, that it's so hard to go, well, when do I not even just jump in, but I mean, that's for like new people, like, well, when do I start? Because there's new models coming out or there's new stuff. You just got to start using it. And,
right.
and luckily it's retroactive of everything you're doing that can bring it forward. But there's so many things where, like, do I build this application? Or you start building an application, you go, hey, I built this really cool thing. And then the next Tuesday comes around and you go, oh shit, they just came out with an app that does that.
Yeah.
But at least you've got like the theory down and you can carry some of that forward. Or you know what, it doesn't do exactly of what I built. So it's just interesting how quickly that is, that you almost go, do I want to wait or do I want to just start building it now?
Right. Yeah. And part of that is you want some experience. You want to kind of, it's the journey, right, of kind of going through that. And that's why, I'm building this Jarvis, AI tool. There's tons of them out there. I could download one, in a matter of minutes and get it up and running.
Yep.
And so, but I want to go through the process of actually developing something like that, and creating the voice interface and really customizing it to what I want. And so that's my kind of impetus for doing those kinds of things, because I'm curious and I want to see how it goes.
So much fun. So much fun.
It is. It's a blast.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as you manage your tokens.
Right. And how many tokens am I going to blast through on this one?
And your tabs in your browser.
You know, and I thought of that the other day too, because when I did my March Madness picks and everything that I put in, I'm like, I wonder how many tokens I burned on that.
Yeah.
Now we've got a summer movie picks thing, and I said the same thing. Well, let's blast through 500,000 tokens putting that together. And I'm just like, you know, I really do need to kind of throttle that a little bit and keep an eye
No,
on
man,
it.
you got to go lean in more.
I'm gonna melt my computer doing it.
Yeah, just keep building more stuff.
So, Pete, I saw you were interacting with your OpenClaw on your phone earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious what your OpenClaw is doing these days.
So,
Can you even talk about it on here? Is it safe for work?
I'll talk about the stuff that's safe for work. So I was telling somebody earlier in another interview this morning, I've wiped my OpenClaw 3 times now and started from scratch, which I don't think is a unique experience.
No, not at all.
And what I learned is I need to spend way more time building the infrastructure instead of just trying to build cool shit like right out of the gate. And to go back to what you said, I also want to learn. I want to know how this stuff works. So I got over the hump on a couple things that I was trying to build and struggling with. And part of my struggle is that I'm using a virtual private server to host my OpenClaw. I don't have it on a local device. So there's certain things like even just getting on the internet and things like accessing websites and things are way more difficult on a VPS than it would be if I was running natively on a local machine. I built a skill that, because I follow some YouTube creators that are all, OpenClaw, and there's so much good stuff in there, but there's so many of them, and there's so much involved in a single video. Like they'll cover 20 or 25 tips for your OpenClaw. Like, am I going to sit down and write down 25 things and then go sit in front of my OpenClaw? And like, what if I could just ask my OpenClaw to ingest the YouTube video, learn all the lessons from there, compare it to what I already have built into my OpenClaw, and negate those, and whatever's left over, say, hey, these are the things that they're doing that you are not. Would you like me to build these into our build? So I finally got that across the finish line. I'm happy about that. Also building a mission control, like just a web interface that I can go to and
You've mentioned that with
see what's going on. I finally got that done, but now it's all the tweaking. I've probably got months of tweaking that I got to do to get this thing to where I want it. And part of that is an agent management system within my mission control. And that's literally what I'm working on right now, is a section of that. So when I click on it, it will have all of my sub agents in there and what they're designed for. They are going to have their own sole MD file, their own memory, and their own area of expertise in managing all that in that mission control. So that's what I'm working on right now. So
Nice. That's I think that's a pretty typical journey from just anecdotally what I've seen online, talking to other folks that are doing the same kinds of things. Reinstall multiple times.
yep.
Build a mission control. Figure out what the skills are and kind of what you need. I think your skill for ingesting YouTube is pretty cool.
Yeah.
To do that kind of thing. So congratulations.
Yeah. It helps being lazy. Like you get really good at coming up with ideas when you're lazy like me. Like, I don't want to write all that shit down. What if I could just give you the video? And there's actually one of the things I struggled with that is there's obviously the transcript from the video, which is very valuable, but a lot of times they're showing what they're doing on the screen, and I want my OpenClaw to look like theirs. So to be able to have it also take screenshots of the video and for design ideas throughout, that was difficult to get that part going too.
Okay.
So I know I don't use OpenClaw like hardly at all, but code, I literally have found, because I'm the same way. I'm very visual. I like good, clean design. I like it sexy. And I literally put in with all these tools that I built for sales on essentially a dashboard. It was very black and white. It was very developer centric looking. And that's not me. And I'm like, finally, I got my tools going and they're working. They're very functional, but they are ugly. And I literally said, make this look sexy on the interface. and it snapped it to our brand colors. It put our brand logo in there. I mean, it was gorgeous when I was done.
Oh, that's awesome.
It put marketing like jargon on there, like this is going to help you build sales. Like it was like a product page when by the time I was done.
That's sweet.
I love it.
But that was literally the prompt that I put in there is make this look sexy. It just feel like the prompts
Give
are
it a
getting
picture of
simpler.
yourself and ask it the same thing.
That's right. What about this, ladies?
Virtual Drew.
I'm curious if you used the new Claude design tool.
I have not.
That is
I've
cool.
heard that. Yeah, I've heard
That
from
is
some
very
people.
cool. I would recommend giving that a try at least, and because you can do websites and decks and
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. You just basically give it ideas or prompt it, and it comes up with some pretty cool design that looks. It doesn't look developer only. It's
Yeah.
Right.
pretty sexy.
It's probably going to end up being my weekend right there because I know like the new ChatGPT one. I love the design stuff and image building and
Yeah.
video memes I can create.
I think you're gonna love it. A coworker of mine was building something. It was really cool. It was for a video game that he was playing, and we don't have time for all the details. But he's like, "Hey, have you seen Claude Design yet?" So he shared his screen and showed it to me. I think you're gonna love it because it looks really sweet.
That's awesome. I'm blown away at how more intuitive the prompts are. We were talking about prompt engineering earlier and how it used to be you had to come up with a very specific prompt and it had to have all this degree of accuracy and detail in it, and you refine it, and then you add it in, then you make it do it. I have gone so far the opposite way. Like I said, make it look sexy, or hey, build this for me in Claude Code. Well, I can build this. I can do this. Here's the framework. If you like the framework, yep, looks great. Do it. It'll start building it out, and it gets to a point where you have to allow, 500,000 times you have to get the allow button. I never read it either. So I don't know what it's doing.
Well, yeah, why even ask me? I'm not reading this stuff.
But it gets to a point where, okay, now I've done all this. Now you have to go into, Supabase backend. You got to add this URL. You've got to do this on Netlify or whatever. And I go, no, you do it.
Yeah.
It's literally what I'll tell it. You do it. And it'll go, all right, finding a workaround. And then it'll open up my browsers. It starts building it. And that's probably why my computer's heating up. Now it's all making sense.
That's right.
But literally, I'll tell it, no, I don't have time. You go do it. I will
Yeah.
literally put that prompt in there and it'll go, okay, here, I'll just take care of it. Just allow me this.
Yeah. I wish
It's
more
like-
people knew that, because I think people are so afraid because they're not technical, they're not coders, they're not whatever. You run into a roadblock, you just tell it to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it's not magic, and it will go wrong, and there's gonna be things that it just can't do. I'm not making those claims, but it can do a hell of a lot more than you think it can.
It can explain a lot to it, like the whole Google Zero Auth. I've never set that up before. And I was locking down kind of the interface to this whole thing to anybody that had a BizStream Gmail email in there that could use it, nobody else. And to set that up, I mean, there's so many finite details you have to put in there, but I'm like, I don't understand. I said, can you walk me through what step? Yeah. Let's go through step 1, and this is where you're going to find it. Click this link. This is what you're going to add. This is what you're going to tell it.
Yep.
Step 2. Now let me know when you're done step 2, and we'll go to step 3. And I was like, oh, this is way easier. I still don't know what I was putting in there,
Doesn't
but
matter.
I don't care.
It doesn't
It
matter.
worked.
I just want it to work
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly.
and be
it.
sexy. I mean, those are the two primary criteria. It's got to work and it's got to be sexy. Or maybe sexy first and then work.
All
Not
of
sure what
the
the order's-
IT people at my work are like, what are you doing? I'm like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm just hitting okay. Just allow. Just go ahead.
Yeah.
Well, how's it doing this? I don't know.
I'm doing your job. That's what I'm doing.
So I'm
Leave me
curious,
alone.
do you use dangerously skip permissions?
What is it?
Oh, don't tell them about this. There's some things that are better left unsaid.
This will be interesting.
Oh God.
What?
So when you invoke Claude,
Mhm.
you're running Claude code. You run Claude and then -- dangerously
Like I'm summoning a demon.
dangerously -skip -permissions, and it will never ask you anymore.
That is dangerous. I don't know if I can do that. Not that I'm reading them, but I don't know if I could go that far.
I'm just saying.
But that'll bypass
That's
all of it.
That's a
It's just saying,
thing. Yeah.
oh, wow.
Especially so the thing there is, and again, you have to know what you're doing, and you have to have a level of trust as well. But if you want it to truly run, just autonomously.
Yeah.
And you're going to give it a bunch of stuff. You're going to tell it to kick off a bunch of agents, and you just want to like leave it and come back in half an hour or whatever, and your thing is done.
Yeah.
Then that's the parameter to use when you invoke Claude.
Interesting. That would be dangerous. I don't know if I could go that far, because there is some sense of security I have to have in this.
Even though you're not reading it, and I was
know.
actually going to say the same thing. I don't read anything. I just say proceed, and that's what you saw me doing earlier. I just literally typed proceed, whatever it said. I don't care. But there's some comfort in feeling like I'm somewhat in control there, even though I'm not reading it. And I'll reuse this reference because it was in a different episode, but the Simpsons episode where Homer has the little bird that presses just keeps pressing the button because that's all he was doing. He's like, why do I need to keep pressing this button if I can just have this little bird do it? And he walks away and the plant melts down and everything horrible happens. But that's what I feel like. Like we're just pressing the button.
Yeah.
And eventually nuclear meltdown.
Eventually my computer melts down.
Dangerously skip.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you, Withers. Or Smithers. Smithers,
Burns.
Withers,
Mr.
Burns.
Burns.
I was way off.
Where are you watching the same show?
Barely not.
It's only been out for
I only
40 years.
I only saw the bird thing.
That's right. That's the only reference I have.
Yeah.
I think
All right.
So the other thing I was gonna mention. So I mentioned a couple of times this Hermes AI or Hermes AI.
I like your pronunciation.
Yeah, that's
I've
very
heard it both
European.
ways. I've heard it both ways. And but it's an interesting AI agent for those that I've heard it compared to OpenClaw, where OpenClaw is the Ferrari and Hermes is the Honda.
Oh.
And so you can infinitely configure OpenClaw to do all kinds of stuff, right? And with Hermes, it's a little bit, it's less, but it's more kind of out of the box, get it up and running. And probably the biggest differentiator is it's touted to be self-learning. So you just work with it, and then it just learns. And if you ask it for something, it'll be like, oh, I'll see if I can find a skill for that, and I'll just download a skill and I'll make all this happen. And so it's an interesting just kind of juxtaposition to what we see with OpenClaw, because again, you can do all kinds of crazy stuff with OpenClaw, but you have to really know what you're doing to make it effective and install it multiple times, and you're kind of pulling your hair out trying to figure out what am I doing here, and not that any of these are going to have some level of that to it.
Sure.
But it's an interesting. So if you're looking to maybe play with an agent, but you don't want to have the the pull your hair out moments maybe as much, then the Hermes AI is something to at least explore. And there's bunches of them now, right? It's not just there's not just those two. There's all kinds of them.
I like it's like a Honda. The analogy. It's like a Honda, not the Ferrari.
Hermes Honda.
Like your Honda Civic from high school.
Yeah, exactly. I
All
mean,
the bumper stickers.
when you say like Hermes AI and Honda, it doesn't really, those two things don't really jive together. But that's at least it's something fun to play with.
That's awesome. We got to wrap this up.
Yep.
I know this is a fun conversation too. I knew it would be with him. on
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
So, Andy, love having you on here. Tell our folks where they can find you.
You can find me at netnerd.ai, also Andy Bass on LinkedIn, and love to connect and chat about AI stuff all the time, not just with these two guys, although it's a lot of fun.
Glad to have you on here. We're definitely going to have you back again.
Appreciate it.
As we build this out and we burn stuff down. If you like today's episode, please hit the like and subscribe and drop us a comment of, are you an OpenClaw fan or are you a Claude Code fan?
Ooh.
Thanks everybody.